All right, we'll move now to board business item number 7, and this is approval of terms of employment, including salary and health benefit enhancements for the Mid-Peninsula Rangers Peace Officers Association.
All right, good evening. This is Ana Ruiz, General Manager. You can hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
All right, I will start this agenda item off with some opening remarks. So the next item before the Board of Directors is to consider a proposed one-year terms of employment, including salary and health benefit enhancements for the Mid-Peninsula Ranger Peace Officers Association. The item is being brought to the board in light of reaching an impasse at the end of a year-long negotiations with our Ranger workforce and the need to set well-understood workplace provisions and terms of employment between the district and the Rangers Association that will carry us through this new fiscal year. Since July 2021, the district has been at the table negotiating with the newly formed Rangers Association to establish a new memorandum of understanding with the Ranger workforce. We were able to reach tentative agreement on the vast majority of items, many of which are included in the proposed terms of employment. The one salient item that lies at the center of the impasse is safety retirement, namely the Rangers Association's proposal to have the district replace their existing CalPERS retirement plan with a substantially enhanced safety retirement plan. The request for safety retirement is not new to the district. Safety retirement has repeatedly been proposed by the represented group many times over our history. And each time the district has evaluated the request with a CalPERS determination that our Rangers are not technically eligible based on the job requirements. Moreover, based on our assessment of Ranger responsibilities and job duties and district policies that specifically limit or restrict Ranger duties, it is fair to state that our Rangers do not face the same level of risk as do city police officers, county sheriffs, or full-time firefighters. District policies regarding Ranger duties and internal workplace protections are intentionally in place to safeguard our Ranger workforce from the potential for injury or harm. And these have proven to be successful as demonstrated by our workers' compensation track record. The district is proud of its risk reduction policies and practices, which have been recognized by the California Joint Powers Insurance Authority with the 2021 Best Overall Performance Award in the Workers' Compensation Program, and most recently, the 2022 Risk Management Award for Best Overall Performance in the Liability Program. The district has, nevertheless, carefully looked at safety retirement to evaluate the potential cost implications, with the conclusion that they are substantial. As the board is fully aware, the district holds responsibility for properly managing its finances on behalf of the public, whose property tax contributions make up 91% or the vast majority of district funding. With this responsibility in mind, the district has evaluated both the short-term upfront costs and the long-term possible and probable costs that can be triggered with safety retirement, and determined that the long-term costs pose a serious concern as to the future financial sustainability of the agency. We know that economic recessions are cyclical. We may be entering one now given the ongoing inflation. And if global disruptions and climate change impacts continue to affect the economy, it is very possible to see the economic impact hit local property values that would then translate directly into a reduction in district revenues and funding. Incurring the cost of safety retirement would seriously constrain the district financially during a downturn. The district may be put in the very difficult position, much like many municipalities in such circumstances, of having to consider reducing the levels of public service and public programs, and at the worst, consider layoffs and job losses. As general manager, I always look far ahead to ensure that the district remains financially solvent so that this agency can continue to do its important work of conserving regional open space lands, preserving significant agricultural lands, protecting our natural resources and native habitats, and connecting people to nature in perpetuity. Decisions we make now, particularly those that have significant long-term cost implications, can have lasting effects into the future. I want to stress that the entire district, myself, and I know the board included, all deeply value the dedication and contributions of our ranger staff. They are essential to fulfilling the mission and to ensuring our open space lands are well protected and our visitors can safely enjoy their public lands. They provide many essential functions to protect the safety and the care of our resources and the public. It is why I am bringing forth our last and final best offer for board consideration to carry us over through the new fiscal year. This proposal includes numerous items that were tentatively agreed upon and also provides important salary increases and benefit enhancements for our employees. The salary increases in particular would allow us to bring up wages that now date back to July 2020, which was the last time the Rangers experienced a salary adjustment as we entered a year of negotiations starting in the summer of 2021. In accordance with the rules of the Myers-Milius-Brown Act, we are limited to being able to only set in place the last and best offer that was presented this last spring to the Rangers bargaining unit. In approving these terms, it does not preclude the district from going back to the negotiating table with the Rangers Association this fiscal year, something that we expect to do and proceed upon with our goal of reaching an agreement on a new memorandum of understanding. As I mentioned earlier, the financial cost implications of safety retirement are substantial. And I would like to now ask our Chief Financial Officer, Stefan Jaskulak, to discuss those in more detail for the board before we proceed to lay out the negotiations process and our next steps and the main points of the proposed one-year terms of employment. So with that, I'll hand this over to Stefan to go into the numbers.
Thank you, Anna. Good evening, Stefan Jaskulak, CFO. The slide before you, there's about 4 different components in here. The base cost under the current scenario is blue. That is the current classic and PEPRA pension plan as a mix. If you layer on top of that, we have the incremental, that is a darker green, so that's the second layer of the cake. That is the incremental employer pension for public safety or cost. And you can see that that will continue to increase and that slice gets bigger as time goes on. Then in a lighter green, so the third layer is the incremental workers' comp. And then the top layer is the incremental liability insurance. So if we go to implement public safety retirement, for example, what happens is that the PEPRA contribution, employer contribution for us over the payroll of the participants will go from 6.75% to 13%. And that is that second layer. And that continues to grow as the payroll continues to grow as well. It is pretty much inevitable for workers' comp to go up as well, also based on the Rangers portion of the payroll, and that rate would go up from 3% to 10.5%. That's a bigger jump, bigger slice. And then further, as part of the possible, probable, inevitable increase of expense would be our liability insurance, which would, based on early indications from Cal JPIA, go up as much as 3.5 times our current liability insurance. So what that means is that the employer contribution going to CalPERS for public safety is at about 350 to 375 starting. The workers' comp rate is similar. The cost is another 300,000 or so. And then, of course, the liability insurance is a little bit less. So our increase in cost directly in the first year could be as much as 560 to 585,000. And over the next 20 years, that'll triple. And that is based on information that we currently have. Now, there are a lot of financial considerations coming towards the district. As the general manager mentioned, we're facing a recession. Technically, we're already in it. Nobody's called it yet, but I think we've had 2 quarters of contraction. That's technically a recession. Currently, the state of California has a surplus. They're projected to have a deficit in a matter of years. So that, in addition to our fuels management expenses, that'll be increasing. We're facing increases for climate change, for example. You know, in order to maintain our lands. Also, in invasive pest management expenses will be increasing. Right now, some of these expenses are covered by grants, and that is nice. That is great. However, if entities like the state of California facing hardship, grants could dry up very quickly. So I would not want to calculate that in as a certainty, as a revenue stream. I consider it gravy, to be honest with you. So there's some items coming towards us that would cause me to be prudent, at least, or recommend that to be prudent. The other factor is that in the controller's 30-year forecast, there's a ratio in there, and that is the operating expense ratio. So that is basically what is our fixed operating expense, mainly personnel, but also other fixed expenses, versus the basic tax revenue. Right now, we're getting close to 60%, and in 15 years, we'll be at 90%. What that means then also is that there'll be less funding available for additional programs, for general fund capital investments, and such. So the more we eat that into that, the less there'll be available for additional expenditures, which was my understanding. That's before my time, as you know, the impetus for Measure AA for that capital program. But of course, when we implement that capital program, there will also be additional operating expenses, which are baked into the 30-year plan. So that's baked into the 90% range. But, you know, as we open up more preserves or acquire more land, there'll be more expenses to cover that as well. And as the general manager said, this is a significant expense. This is the best financial picture, literally the picture, the graph that I can present at this point with the information that we have. We have baked in 1 additional FTE in the ranger ranks per year. That's why you see a little bit of a sawtooth. We have 3% wage increases in there. So there's a lot of assumptions going into it. And that all together results in the basic tripling of the potential tripling of the expenses. That's so I'll leave it at that for now and turn it over to Jack Hughes, our chief negotiator, to walk us through the remainder.
Okay, thank you, Stefan, and thank you, Anna. The next slide here in the presentation gives you a sense of some of the bargaining process that the parties went through. The Mid-Peninsula Ranger Peace Officer Association historically was a subcomponent of the larger Field Employees Association. And as the general manager mentioned in her comments, this question of safety retirement was raised in a number of prior labor negotiations over the years when the Rangers were the part of that larger organization. More than a year ago, the Rangers petitioned Midpen to break off and have their own bargaining unit. There's a series of processes that have to be completed to lawfully conclude that process, and that finished up on June 9th of 2021. Thereafter, the parties identified their bargaining teams and commenced a rather lengthy bargaining process. They met starting on July 21 of 2021 and had 11 meetings that spanned through March 16th of 2022. During the negotiation process, the parties had a rather big project in front of them, is that they were starting from scratch. They did not have an existing labor agreement between them. The parties were able to agree to bring many components of the existing Field Employees Association MOU over and use those as a foundation for a new labor agreement, a first labor agreement for the Ranger Peace Officer Association unit. The parties also reached agreement on a number of other issues, some economic, some not, that would be unique to the Rangers, that would also form the basis for a labor agreement for this new bargaining unit. As the general manager indicated, the core source of disagreement throughout the entire negotiation was, once again, the notion of whether or not there would be safety retirement. The Rangers insisted in past that they simply had to have that, and the agency indicated that it was not comfortable moving in that direction for economic and non-economic reasons. This culminated in a series of exchanges between the parties earlier this year. In February, the district presented a multi-year, 3-year term best offer package to the association. The association's bargaining team reported back that they met with all the members of the association, that the 3-year package from the district was declined. Thereafter, the district reached out and gave another best offer package to the association, this one for a 1-year term. The reason for that is multiple. Number one, it's fairly common if parties are having a challenging time reaching agreement for them to look at different lengths or durations of MOUs to see if a shortened MOU that put the parties back at the bargaining table would enable them to reach agreement, whereas a longer term agreement was one they just weren't comfortable engaging in. And then number two is a feature of law, and it really culminates in the hearing this evening, which is that under the applicable state law that governs how this bargaining process works, if a board of directors such as ours is faced with an impasse in a labor negotiation, they can either leave the status quo or they can adopt their best offer for a 1-year term. And so it was important to have a 1-year term offer out there so that all the various ingredients where the parties had agreement on a new MOU to bring pieces over from the Field Employees Association MOU, and the various economic and non-economic areas where they had agreed and or where there was additional benefit that could be brought to the compensation model for the Rangers could be adopted by the board so that those issues weren't lost amid the impasse over the safety retirement issue. Regrettably, the Rangers Association also declined the 1-year offer from the district, and that culminated in a May 10 discussion between myself and the chief negotiator for the association, wherein we explored a variety of pie in the sky ideas to see if there was some way that we could break this impasse. We concluded that we had really hit a wall in the negotiation, that there did not appear to be any way to get past the zero-sum question of whether there would or would not be a safety retirement component to this particular MOU for this new bargaining unit. And as a result, there was an exchange of communications, written communications between the parties in which they acknowledged that they were at an impasse in the bargaining process. And that's a formal term under the applicable law. As I indicated, that impasse process is a continuation of the bargaining process. During the impasse process, the parties exchanged written correspondence, detailed written correspondence back and forth regarding the issue of safety retirement, and had other communications, but regrettably, none of those communications have resulted in any movement on either side. Parties continue to be in different places with different points of view regarding whether safety retirement is an appropriate ingredient of the overall compensation model for the Ranger unit. Which then, of course, then leads us to this evening's board item, and really the two options that the board has. The sort of easier path, if you will, is to simply do nothing, to leave status quo, to leave all of the ingredients of compensation and the non-compensation related aspects of the relationship between the parties as they were before the Peace Officer Association left the Ranger unit. As our general manager mentioned, a consequence of that would be that the compensation levels will remain the same as they've been since July of 2020. And in a competitive world with inflation, where we have concerns about our workforce's ability to live in that world, doing nothing although it does not require the board to have a public hearing such as this, does not allow the board to move forward and provide for the compensation adjustments that the parties mutually discussed during the negotiation as being necessary. The other pathway is then, of course, the imposition of terms approach, which is the board item for this evening. It requires a public hearing. It requires a vote of the board to choose to adopt that terms document, and it's good for the balance of the fiscal year. As the general manager indicated, this is not the last time that these parties will engage in labor relations, labor negotiations. It's anticipated that later in the fiscal year, the parties will take another crack at trying to negotiate an MOU. And we all anticipate that the Rangers will once again raise the question of safety retirement. We'll all take a fresh look at it at that point in time. But the benefit of the action, if the board so chooses to take it this evening, is that that conversation will take place in the context of other aspects of compensation having been improved for the Rangers for the benefit of both them and the district. I think with that, we can move on to the next slide. And this summarizes the terms that would be adopted. Brian, I don't know if you're going to be speaking to this or if you'd like me to speak to it, sir.
Yeah, I could speak you to it. Brian Malone, Assistant General Manager. This is just going over primarily the economic terms that are the meat of the terms of employment document. And one of the things that we do in all negotiations is look at the comparable job market. So that's where you see the equity line for Ranger and Lead Ranger. Rangers were shown to be based on the board policy of compensation of median or above to be requiring a 2.5% raise to get up to that above that median, and then Lead Rangers 5% raise to get to that compensation guideline. And then once those are applied, a 3% base wage adjustment. So what would end up happening for a Ranger they would be getting approximately a 5.5% raise, a Lead Ranger approximately 8% raise, and a Supervising Ranger approximately or about a 3% raise. So that's the primary economic what would be the terms of employment, and we would be able to implement that as soon as the board approved it at the next pay period. And then medical, we also looked at the Kaiser rates for 2022, and these would all match the 2022 Kaiser rates. As you know, with the FEA, we have a 4% limit on how much it increases the next year, because this was a fresh bargaining with the Peace Officer Association. We reached a tentative agreement to bring these all to what the current cost for Kaiser is as the baseline medical plan that we provide district employees. So this would match that for all these different, the employee only, employee plus one, or the employee plus two or more. We also looked at a proposal for the Rancher Association to increase shift change differential, and we agreed to that, and that would be part of this terms document. It would go from 30 to 40. Shift change differential is if within a certain time frame, if the district has to change the Ranger's shift for coverage and it's unable to give a certain notice to change the shift, it compensates the Ranger for that inconvenience of having to work a different shift than they had planned to. We try to avoid that as much as possible, but if that case occurs, it would raise that compensation to 40 per occurrence. And then retiree medical, this would bring the Peace Officer Association to $380 a month, similar to other the FEA and the office and supervisory staff. We also are, as part of this, enhancing dental and vision plans. And then another change was the going to a public administrative law judge procedure for grievance. And if I could have Jack Hughes explain that process.
Yes, during the 2021 negotiations with the Field Employees Association, the parties discussed the possibility of moving from what we call private sector dispute resolution to public sector dispute resolution in the labor agreement. On a practical level, what this means is raising the question of whether or not, if there's a dispute between the parties, such as a disciplinary action of an employee, who's going to make the ruling on whether that disciplinary action is sustained or not. Private sector involves the use of private attorneys who are serving as arbitrators. The public sector model is using formal administrative law judges provided by the state of California. And in the Field Employees Association negotiation, the parties concluded that they were going to move from historical use of private sector arbitrators to, from our perspective, the more appropriate use of state of California administrative law judges. One of the many driving principles that helps govern labor negotiations in this organization is an effort to try to create as much commonality across bargaining units for both represented and non-represented employees as possible. And so, having moved to the administrative law judge model of the Field Employees Association, naturally, the district raised this issue with the Rangers as part of their negotiation. In the end, there was not a signed tentative agreement to make that move as part of this negotiation, but there was some signal from the Rangers that they'd be willing to go there if they were able to receive their safety retirement. The feeling of the district, however, is that whether we have safety retirement or not, it's imperative to have this common public sector dispute resolution process across the entire organization. And therefore, that is part of both the 3-year package and the 1-year package that the district made, and therefore part of the terms document that is before the board this evening.
And with that, we'll return to the general manager's recommendation, approval of the terms of employment, including salary and health benefit enhancements for the Mid-Peninsula Rangers Peace Officers Association for a term ending June 30th, 2023. And if there are any board questions, we would be happy to address them.
Right, thank you. Let's see, it was Brian, Jack, Stefan, and Anna. Thank you for that comprehensive overview. And we will ask or entertain questions at this point, but let's hold off on deliberations on this until after we've taken public comment. So questions for staff and Jack. Director Siemens.
Well, actually, I have a question for Stefan. If you could go back to his first slide that showed the cost, that one. So I have a question about the blue part. This is all based on our current staff level?
Yes, this is based on a current staff level and the current mix of classic versus pepper.
So if we double the number of Rangers, then this whole graph would probably double, right?
Well, it does include an additional FTE every other year. So
this does.
It does. It has growth baked into it already.
Okay, and then the blue portion were in 2022. Is that just a district's contribution for additional retirement cost over and above what we currently do?
That is our current employer contribution for the Rangers, for the members of the Mid-Peninsula Regional.
Okay, the blue is our current base cost
current cost, correct.
for safety retirement.
Correct.
So what's the add-on cost?
So our current cost for the current miscellaneous employee retirement that they have currently.
That's a district cost, right?
That's the base cost.
Right.
Okay, that doesn't include the employee contribution, right?
No, it does not.
Okay. And so the dark green is the incremental cost of safety retirement?
Yes, that goes, yes, that is the incremental cost of safety retirement. So then the blue and the dark green are employer contributions to CalPERS.
Oh, that's workers' comp and insurance. Okay, I understand that. So the dark green, now on the dark green, that would be the district's contribution, not the employee's contribution, right?
Correct again, yes.
And the employee contribution is approximately 6%, correct?
The employer contribution right now is 6.75%. And under safety retirement that goes up to 13%.
Okay, and how much more would the employee have to pay?
That's a similar amount.
Okay, an additional 6% roughly.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. I was trying to understand all the numbers and where we are. So,
Sure.
all right, okay, thank you.
Good, thank you, Director Siemens. Director Kishimoto.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, actually staying on this table, one question I have is how much variance would there potentially be in this? Is it like, if we develop a very good track record, could we dramatically reduce the workers' comp, that kind of thing, or?
These are the rates that County APIA has provided us based on their experience in the safety pool, if you will. And this is a starting rate, and we've carried that starting rate all the way through. I typically don't see those rates coming down. They could go up if we have bad performance.
Okay.
Every year there's a recalculation that they perform, and they sometimes give us a surcharge if our performance is not that good.
I see. So it's a starting rate. And then let's see, maybe this is more of a question for Brian, but I was just going to see if is there a quick way of kind of summarizing, besides the obvious difference in not carrying arms, but of the difference in ranger versus other safety personnel such as policemen, fire. I mean, how would you characterize the major differences?
Yeah, so our rangers perform important public safety function. They're our first responders to a lot of that type of stuff, whether it's a medical call or fire. And law enforcement is focused basically on enforcing our infraction violations. It is not focused on felonies or most misdemeanors, and mostly on with a few select laws that are important to protect the preserves and the people in the preserves, mostly focused on the district's ordinance itself. So those type of major crimes are actually we request assistance to handle that type of thing. So it's in enforcement, it's those elements that are being enforced is different. And for the fire element, it's that initial first response. We understand that we have limitations both in training and equipment. And so we do the initial, which is crucial, right? To have a person on scene that knows the preserve, that can provide access for incoming fire personnel. But they don't, fire personnel, wildland fire personnel would be, staging a weeks-long campaign, sometimes being shipped out of the area, sometimes being on the fire overnight as well. So, and it's not to say that the district, like we did in the CZU fire 2 years ago, doesn't sometimes play a role in the ongoing suppression. That's relatively rare, but if there's a role that fits our training and experience, we can take that as well. So in general, and then all our policies are written, particularly for law enforcement, such that we are, like for instance, we don't use physical force just to detain someone as a police officer might for, say, a theft or something. We would not do that. We would call for additional resources, use the radio to try to corral, which rangers are very effective at doing. And contacts can be unexpected and different things that happen, but we do have a good track record of those policy differences, keeping our rangers safe. It's a vitally important role that they play, but I wouldn't compare them directly as far as risk to a full-time wildland firefighter or urban police officer, municipal police officer.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Director Kishimoto and Director Riffle.
Great, thank you. Could you go back to this slide that lists, I guess, the compensation benefits that basically we're talking about tonight? Thanks. So my question is, was really brought up by Anna and then I think repeated by Jack. And so maybe the two of you could to address this. So let's face it, I think all of us would love to figure out how we can reach agreement, that meets, our mutual goals here. So my question is kind of the next steps to the process. So if we take this action tonight, what that still allows or what that sets up is further negotiations to try to resolve this over this next year. So I was just wondering if Jack or Anna or Brian could kind of fill in the details a little bit about kind of what happens after this, because I'd like to figure out how that's going to get us to our long-term goal.
I'd be happy to speak to that.
Yeah.
As I indicated, this is not the last labor relations engagement that the Rangers in the district will have. What the Myers-Milius-Brown Act law, the applicable law here, provides for is for a board, when there's an impasse, to be able to give the parties a lifeboat between the negotiation where they were not able to reach agreement, in other words, where they were at impasse, and the next negotiation that will take effect or to take place in preparation for the following fiscal year. And so that's why we had a one-year offer out there as a companion to the three-year offer. Along with trying to find a way to get to yes with a shorter period of time, it also sets up the possibility that the board, acting under the Myers-Milius-Brown Act, can provide for a terms document to provide for other compensation enhancements, such as those that you see summarized on this screen, as a foundation for the parties to then pick up and start a new bargaining process that we anticipate will occur sometime later this fiscal year. Under the law, labor and management have an obligation to meet and confer over labor agreement every single year when they do not have an existing labor agreement in place covering whatever that period of time is. And so this terms document would carry you through this fiscal year. It will be good through March 30th of 2023, but we do not have a labor agreement in place starting July 1 of 2023. So likely in the spring of 2023, the parties will come back to the table and see what, if any, conditions and circumstances, economic or non-economic, have changed that might enable them to finally reach agreement on this issue one way or another. So, from a staff perspective, then the benefit of this is it provides, to be straightforward, wage increases, benefit increases in terms of contributions from the employer, so the employees don't lose the benefit of that while they wait for their next round of labor negotiations that would start in the next 5, 6, 7 months. I hope that addresses your question, sir.
Yes, that was very helpful. Thank you, Jack. Anna, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, Jack covered it completely. That is the case. Is we're expecting to go back to the table this fiscal year, and this will carry us through that period.
Okay.
You're muted, Director Riffle.
Sorry, thanks. That's all the questions I have now. I might have some after we hear from public comment.
All right, very good. Any other of my colleagues have questions for staff at this juncture? Kirk, did your hand come back? Oh, there you go. Okay. All right, so we'll move now to public comment. And if the clerk will put up the slide which shows how members of the public can make a public comment this evening.
Yes, give me just a moment, please.
Certainly.
I got about 35 public comments up on my screen, so give me just a second.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so those who have submitted public comments, just so you're aware, we will start with those who requested to provide oral comments, and then you will each have 3 minutes. You'll see the timer there, and then I'll move on to those to be read into the record. So the first to be providing oral comments is going to be Alex Hapke in Castro Valley. So the Deputy District Clerk will allow you to unmute. You can unmute yourself and then you can begin.
Good evening, Alexander Hapke, President, Mid-Peninsula Rangers Peace Officers Association. First, I want to say that the district provides retirement benefits for its employees, and for that we are all very appreciative. The specific problem is not all employees do the same job. As a result, we have a group of employees who aren't getting the retirement benefits designed for their profession. CalPERS has a variety of pension plans tailored for different professions. The retirement benefit currently offered to all employee groups is designed for individuals who are not involved in law enforcement, fire suppression, or the protection of public safety. Specifically, miscellaneous retirement benefits do not protect Rangers from the hazards of the job, especially since Rangers are peace officers, wildland firefighters, and first responders. Rangers have been trying to bargain for public safety benefits since at least 2013. Benefits CalPERS says we qualify for as long as 4 words are removed from our job description, or ability to obtain. Our proposals were all written with moderation in mind to get to a negotiated deal. We were willing to bargain on the district's big issue, taking away a previously negotiated benefit, binding arbitration for discipline, as long as they were willing to bargain on ours, a public safety benefits plan to protect Rangers where the Ranger cost increase for the benefit would be greater than the cost increase for the district. The district refused to engage in any bargaining compromise that would allow the Rangers to be included in a public safety benefits retirement system. Instead, they are imposing work rules on us. The district's refusal to address the lacking public safety protections won't make the problem go away. As more time goes by, there will be more Rangers that need improved protections. All the Rangers want is the opportunity to bargain for an agreement to receive the public safety retirement benefits we feel we are entitled to. The primary reason the POA became the bargaining unit was to bargain for public safety benefits. We understand and we are prepared for the compromises that would be involved for us to achieve that. But for the district not to even be willing to engage in a conversation makes no sense to us. It has been relayed to us the district's position is if Rangers want safety or retirement, they can quit and work elsewhere. The district may just get what it wants. The district's refusal to engage in negotiations for public safety benefits has forced 80% of Rangers to consider leaving, with 25% already submitting applications for other jobs. We have already lost 3 Rangers in 3 months. Is this how the district treats the world's greatest staff? I would also like to bring to the public's attention that State Senator Dave Cortese has sent a letter to the district board in support of the Rangers' attempt to get public safety benefits and asked the board to continue with negotiations instead of imposing work rules. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person providing oral comment is Ryan Augustine in Pescadero.
I am Ryan Augustine, and I am speaking as a member of the Mid-Peninsula Rangers Peace Officers Association. Looking at the GM recommendation, I see many things that are at best in dispute and at worst wrong. She implies retirement is the main thing we didn't agree on. Neither side reached a tentative agreement on compensation, medical insurance, cafeteria plan, dental insurance, vision care, retirement, retiree medical coverage, shift change differential, or the grievance procedure, just to name a few. The district's chief negotiator asked if there was anything else that could address our safety retirement needs. He didn't ask about the employee paying a portion of the employer cost, which is possible, or any other options with safety retirement. It was a flat no, and let's move on. With the GM's number of $320,000 per year increase almost matching identically to the board's approved fiscal year 2022 budgeted surplus, then they added on an additional $180,000 each year, which is a 156% increase to the to additional expenses. As for the job description, people are hired and can't work as a ranger because by the district's own job description, the district is hiring unqualified employees. They cannot perform the primary duty of patrol. They cannot carry safety equipment. They have not been trained as a ranger, wildland firefighter, or emergency medical responder. Many don't have the required knowledge the job description lists, yet the district classifies them as a ranger whose job they can't safely or legally perform. It is this unqualified employee that the administration refers to every time they refer to, quote, the ability to obtain, end quote. The administration designates people for 9 to 12 months while not performing the duties of a ranger as a ranger. This isn't about money. It isn't about taking away employee protections with the administrative law judge. This is about the ranger classification. Does the public deserve protection from, quote, dangerous situations and violent individuals, end quote, that the district states rangers will encounter on district lands? Does the public deserve a district that suppresses fire on its lands before it becomes uncontainable? Does the public deserve a district that can quickly respond to medical emergencies on district lands? Their tax money goes to the district, not elsewhere, to provide these services, and this responsibility falls on the rangers. The rangers believe the public deserves this care, and we want you to vote no on the GM's recommendation and direct your staff to return to the negotiation table with a public safety benefit option to protect the rangers so they can protect the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Augustine. The next commenter is going to be Marleah Augustine in Pescadero. Actually, Marleah, it looks like I'm getting an error when we're trying to allow you to speak. Give us just a minute to work on that and we'll come back to you. So the next member of the public we will have speak is going to be Ken Miller. I just lost my thing. Ken Miller in Campbell. So Ken.
Yep. Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm Ken Miller. I'm speaking to you. Board of Directors is a 30-year member of the Midpen Ranger Peace Officers Association. And I ask that the Open Space District Board to not impose unilateral working conditions on the bargaining group, but return to the negotiating table. I believe it is only fair and just that district rangers have the same benefits that Santa Clara County Park Rangers are provided. Santa Clara County Park Rangers have safety retirement, as well as a fully funded Kaiser coverage in retirement. Providing anything less to the district rangers is just plain wrong. The district's introductory language to the contract working conditions is hard to believe. Providing safety to the rangers from law enforcement and firefighting duties strictly due to policies is just not reasonable. Let me quote the district enabling legislation verbatim. Public Resources Code 5588A states the board shall employ a suitable police force. Public Resources Code 5561.5 states the district shall be primarily responsible for prevention and suppression of all fires on any lands in its possession or control. If district rangers are not providing these services per the enabling legislation, what district employees are providing the fire and law enforcement services? If the contract is imposed, it will be a sad milestone to mark the 50th anniversary of the district. Also, a first in 32 years of collective bargaining between the district and its employees. Bargaining arbitration is also mentioned in the imposition of the work rules. What is the reason for the removal? There's never been a cost to the district for it being in the contract. This is yet another example of collective bargaining being removed from the current contract. If the contract is imposed, it is only fair also that retroactive pay is paid to the bargaining unit members. Not paying the retroactive money would be yet another first in the district's 50-year history. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. The next commenter we have is Jeff Smith in Saratoga.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Smith, Vice President of the Mid-Peninsula Rangers Peace Officer Association. As one of the members of the POA's negotiating team, I'd like to share with you my experience of the negotiation process that resulted in our current situation. POA's negotiation team worked diligently to propose adaptations to the former contract that we've been part of prior to being recognized as a separate bargaining unit. We now represent employees that perform unique job duties in service of the district, including law enforcement, firefighting, emergency medical response, and search and rescue. We worked to be reasonable in selecting issues to propose changes on in the contract, and we were prepared to sit at the table with the district's negotiation team and have discussion on topics that the two sides clearly had different positions on, in the hopes that we could reach a reasonable compromise on a new contract. Unfortunately, this didn't happen. We requested to meet in person to negotiate, knowing that it would improve our ability to discuss issues. Unfortunately, negotiations began during the height of COVID, excuse me, the COVID pandemic. So the negotiation meetings were held remotely on video conference, inhibiting dialogue. But even when the administrative staff began returning to the office and requested to meet in person, the district negotiators refused, and we continued to meet online. We were prepared to enter discussions to explain our position and work to compromise on all issues that were important to the district. And we expected the district's negotiators would do the same for the POA. Instead, when the list got down to those items, any attempt to discuss abruptly ended, eliminating any opportunity for discussion. Negotiations ended, and any chance to show that we were willing to come to compromise was cut off, and we were forced to go to impasse, resulting in our current situation. The resulting dialogue with the district has felt disingenuous and disrespectful to your patrol staff. For example, when the decision was made by the district to keep our preserves open during the COVID-19 pandemic shutdown, the MRPOA's members were the only staff not to be sent home to work or put on administrative leave, as we are the district's peace officers and emergency responders responsible for the safety and protection of the public and district lands. We were sent to the Santa Clara County's first responder vaccination clinic alongside other law enforcement and firefighters that work in the county. We understood the need and put ourselves at extra risk during that time, and we continue to keep our preserves open and safe. Now we are told that we are not really any of those, and that policy will keep us safe. We see the inconsistencies in these actions and statements. Please do not vote to impose work terms on MRPOA and direct the district's negotiators to come back to the table to have open discussion about PERS safety retirement and all other important issues. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go ahead and try Marlene Augustine again. Let's see. Marlene, you can go ahead and unmute yourself, and you do have 3 minutes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Marleah Augustine. I am married to a Mid-Peninsula Ranger. When he was little, he wanted to be a combination of firefighter, paramedic, and police when he grew up. And as an adult, he worked as a firefighter, he worked as an EMT, and then he discovered this position that would actually let him live out all three of those dreams. And I was thrilled for him. Then I had to get used to the fact that my husband would be wearing a bulletproof vest to work. I had to get used to him responding to a variety of situations in which he risks his own life and limb. I had to get used to him putting himself between those who are enjoying the open spaces and any danger that may be out there every day. I had to get used to the fact that there is a real physical and mental toll that this job can take on those who do it. Recently, I was at home during his shift and a sheriff's deputy pulled up outside and my stomach just dropped. And my immediate thought was something finally happened. And I imagined losing him. I imagined losing our home. I imagined telling our 10-year-old that she had lost her father. And thankfully, it was for something else completely unrelated, but it put in stark relief what he faces and the toll it takes on him and on all of us and the other Rangers and their families and loved ones. There's a lot of talk about costs over time. Retention is extremely important. Training costs for Rangers are very high. Invest in those who are here long-term, who are already hired, invest in them, and turnover may be reduced. Rangers should be provided safety retirement. The very least that can be done is the district return to the table to negotiate and support those who protect our spaces and those in them. Thank you.
Thank you, Marleah. Sorry for mispronouncing your name. I read it wrong. Our next commenter is Kristen Perry. Kristen in La Honda. Kristen. Kristen, you are unmuted and you do have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. As a member of the Midpen Rangers POA, I ask that you vote no on approving terms of employment. While I would love a cost of living adjustment that I've already gone more than a year without, it is insulting to impose working conditions rather than negotiate with your employees on a contract that includes safety pension benefits. In our attempts to negotiate for the safety retirement plan we qualify for as peace officers, your management team has stated that Rangers incorrectly presume that our risk level is commensurate to police officers and firefighters. I argue that your management team incorrectly presumes that a Ranger's risk level is commensurate to administrative staff. Per the Midpen Ranger job description, Rangers, quote, must be willing to work with exposure to difficult circumstances, including exposure to dangerous situations and violent individuals, end quote. Rangers are highly trained first responders to law enforcement, fire, and medical emergencies. They have dealt with all manner of high-risk incidents in the preserves, which recently includes a gunshot victim on Mount Eminem, a homicide in Rancho San Antonio, an assault in St. Joseph's Hill, and an armed suicidal suspect at Windy Hill, to name a few. You cannot make a policy that removes all risks faced by public safety personnel, but you can better protect them by providing access to safety and industrial disability benefits that provides. Safety members receive a higher pension to encourage young, healthy employees to enter these professions and to enable them to leave these positions before the infirmities of age threaten their ability to adequately protect the public. How do you expect your Ranger staff to protect the public and the preserves with the stamina, strength, and mobility that this job requires until they are 62 years of age? By continuing to do so, you are increasing your liability for workplace injuries and choosing to not protect the public with the highest level of safety they deserve. Show your Rangers tonight that you still believe your staff is your greatest resource. Either remain at impasse or negotiate with your Rangers on the contract they deserve, but do not impose terms of employment. Thank you.
Thank you. The next public comment we have is from Jeff Brown. Jeff, you can unmute yourself and you do have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Board of Directors. My name is Jeff Brown and I work for the district as a Ranger. And I am joining you tonight on release time representing the Mid-Peninsula Rangers Peace Officers Association. On June 22nd, I spoke to you regarding the negotiations process and reaching an impasse. The reason that the POA declared an impasse is that the management team was unwilling to discuss the reasons for refusing to negotiate on a public safety benefit. By declaring impasse, the negotiations process was ended and allowed us to attempt to communicate directly with you. You have refused to meet with us. I also invited each of you to come on a staff ride-along with a Ranger so you can see firsthand what we do on a daily basis. You have not done this either. I believe that management has been misrepresenting what the Ranger job entails. As it is defined in job description and in the Ranger Operations Manual, the primary duty of a Ranger is as a peace officer who, through law enforcement, protects the open space lands and the safety of the public on those lands. Rangers also work as medical responders and wildland firefighters and face significantly more risk than office staff. Policy does not protect staff. Policy only protects the district's liability. It would be an insult to force work rules on your Ranger employees without even speaking to them or hearing our side of the story. The reason that we are in this situation is that the district's management has been unwilling to acknowledge the Rangers' public safety role and has been unwilling to negotiate on a public safety benefit. The message shared by the district's chief negotiator during discussions was, if you want safety retirement, go work somewhere else. I am passionate about preserving open space, and I do not want to work as a city police officer or firefighter. I have no interest in changing the job duties of a Ranger as they currently exist. I just want the ability to negotiate for a benefit that I am eligible for due to those job duties. I know the job that I am currently required to perform, and I know I am unable to perform those job duties until age 62 as required by our current benefits. I implore I implore you to look to the future of this agency and realize that the current benefits plan is not sustainable for Ranger staff. Please vote no on the general manager's recommendations and direct staff to return to negotiations and offer a public safety benefit that will protect Rangers while we protect the preserves and the public safety. Thank you.
Thank you. The next public comment we have is from Michael Warner in Redwood City. Okay, Mike, you can go ahead and unmute yourself, and you do have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Honorable board members, my name is Michael Warner. I am speaking as a board member of the Park Ranger Association of California, Regional Director for Region 2, which covers a large swath of Central California, including the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District. In addition to this, I have served for over a decade as a park ranger and supervising park ranger with allied agencies of the MROSD. I'm here tonight to voice my opposition to the proposed item and urge you to vote no on this item and instruct your staff to return to the bargaining table with public safety as an option, public safety retirement as an option. While the board that is assembled here today may be experts in other fields like property management, engineering, career politicians, and planners, none of you have ever worked as a park ranger. You haven't dealt with uncooperative and difficult people alone in the field 30 minutes or more from your nearest help. You haven't had to de-escalate subjects under the influence of drugs or alcohol, conduct traffic stops, run initial attack on a vegetation fire, respond to a vehicle accident with multiple casualties. These are all duties that are required of your ranger staff, not just by word of mouth, but actually in their job description. The executive report issued for this item is at best ill-informed and written by someone who has never done the job, or at worst written deliberately to deceive you. I urge you to reconsider before approval. Safety retirement should be a necessary part of the job. All over the state, many rangers do not make it to the age of 62 as their bodies simply give out from the stress and the abuse of the job. This ultimately costs agencies more in disability, medical expenses, and unexpected early medical retirements. In 2019, the city of Los Angeles lost a park ranger who would have been retired medically during a wildland fire. He had a heart attack. This could have been avoided if they had retirement benefits that the rangers are asking for. As the brief report states, it would ultimately cost the district too much, a total of approximately $320,000 a year, which equates to 1/3% of the $84 million budget approved for financial year 23. While MRSD claims it's necessary to manage its costs, natural resources staff are buying carbon credits to offsite flights for district staff. There was a $250,000 increase in budget for the executive manager's office over the last 2 years, an $80,000 increase for public relations for this year, the year that is winding down after the 50th anniversary celebration, and $500,000 for filling in wells on Skyline Ridge and $1.3 million in office furniture over the last 2 years. You have prioritized filling in wells, buying office chairs, and filling your admin departments over the health of your own field staff. The previous agency I worked for did not support their staff as well, and they had a 150% turnover rate in 10 years. Think about the long-term cost this will have on your district. I urge you to consider the health and welfare of your rangers in your decision. Thank you.
Thank you. The next commenter we have is Matt Cerkel from Fairfax. You can unmute yourself, and you do have 3 minutes.
Good evening, board. My name is Matt Cerkel. I've worked in the parks for over 30 years and have served as a peace officer ranger for 27 years. I'm also the current president of the Park Rangers Association of California. I've been following this issue for over a year, and after reading the problematic and misleading staff report on this issue that downplays the public safety duties and risks your rangers face daily, I must speak out. I first have to ask, have any of the current board members taken the time to read the ranger job description? There are nearly 40 references to public safety duties, equipment, functions, and training in it. Also, have any of the board members taken the time to do a ride-along with your rangers to see what they deal with on a daily basis? The staff report states your rangers face less risk than police officers, sheriff's deputies, or firefighters, but this does not take into account your rangers often work alone in remote locations with less defensive equipment than traditional law enforcement and sometimes poor radio communication, and their backup is likely going to be a long way away. It wasn't that long ago Some of you rangers tried to stop a visitor for a minor Midpen violation, and that visitor ended up committing battery on multiple rangers and tried to choke one of them. And also, let's not forget your rangers work in multiple public safety realms. Law enforcement, fire, and EMS, unlike police and firefighters who work in only one public safety realm. I work and live in Fairfax, in Marin County, which is one of the safest counties in all of California. And the only law enforcement officers ever murdered in Marin County were a game warden and a park ranger. Park rangers and park law enforcement and natural resource law enforcement can be extremely dangerous. The purpose of safety retirement is to allow workers to retire before their health gives out. Where I work, we've had only one, thankfully, line of duty death of a ranger who suffered a fatal heart attack after fighting a fire. He was 56 years old. Currently, 40% of our ranger staff is out medically with either work-related injuries or health issues. And they are all over 55 years old. Few, if any of your rangers are likely to make their current retirement age of 62. In the coming years, unless changes are made, your workers' comp claims and disability retirement will skyrocket. In my many years of government service, I have learned agencies will always find the money to pay for what they value. Your vote tonight will send a message to your rangers about how you value them and their safety. In closing, I would like to point out the ranger job description ends with exposure to difficult circumstances, including exposure to dangerous situations and violent individuals.
Thank you, Mr. Cerkel. The next public comment we have is from Lindsay Contreras in Woodside. Lindsay, I think Lindsay may not have her last name on there. Lindsay, can you go ahead and raise your hand just so we can make sure it's you? In the meantime, oh, I think that was it. That did it. Okay, Lindsay, you can unmute yourself and you do have 3 minutes.
Hi, good evening. Oh, one sec.
We've all
My
been there
name
with
is
Zoom.
Lindsay Contreras. I'm a member of the Mid-Peninsula Rangers Peace Officers Association, the employee association representing the Rangers in negotiations with the district. As you know, negotiations with the district have reached an impasse and we have been unable to sign an employment contract. Rangers work as sworn peace officers, protecting the public and the open space by enforcing the district regulations and state laws. We also serve as emergency first responders, responding to medical emergencies in and around district preserves. We are also wildland firefighters. I entered this profession because of a desire to help people and serve my community. I want to ensure that our public lands are being enjoyed safely and protected for future generations. In doing so, I am putting myself at risk, often responding to remote areas in unpredictable situations where I don't always have dependable radio signal. Rangers work primarily alone, unlike our firefighter peers, and make law enforcement contacts on rough terrain in remote areas without the same defensive safety equipment that our law enforcement peers carry day to day. Having safety retirement would ensure protection for myself and my coworkers if we are hurt and no longer able to perform the duties that this physically demanding career requires of us. Board members, I urge you to direct your staff to return to negotiations and offer a public safety benefit to protect Rangers as they continue the valuable work that we do on a daily basis. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Contreras. The last public oral comment we have is from Marianne Chance in Woodside. Marianne, you can unmute yourself. You do have 3 minutes.
Dear Midpen Board of Directors and staff, it is my privilege and pleasure to address you today about the Midpen Ranger terms of employment. My name is Marianne Chance. I was hired as a ranger for Midpen in 2013. At the moment that I was offered the ranger job, I remember saying to Pamela in HR, I feel like the luckiest person in the world. Side note, if you look up lucky in the dictionary, the definition contains words like chance, fortune, and of course, the good old lucky rabbit's foot. As a Midpen Ranger, I often felt that I was taking a chance while performing the duties of my job. Duties such as detaining hostile subjects, attending to medical emergencies amongst highway traffic, fighting wildland fires, hard, physical, dirty, and dangerous work. I quit my job as a Midpen Ranger in 2021, and that was truly the luckiest day of my life. I had survived to that point. I would never again have to put my life at risk for my job. Working for my current district, I now receive the same retirement benefits with none of the risk of working as a Midpen Ranger. I now feel valued, safe, protected, and comfortable, all for the exact same retirement benefits I had as a Ranger at Midpen. Please treat your Rangers with respect and dignity they deserve. I beg you, do not impose your terms of employment upon them tonight. Slow down now. Go back to negotiate safety retirement and listen to the Rangers as valued human beings, not just as dollar signs. I left my Ranger job because I did not feel valued by Midpen management. This agenda item confirms my decision. And now that I am no longer a Midpen Ranger, no longer taking a chance with my life on the job, I've reflected a bit more on being lucky. This quote attributed to Ambrose Bierce sums it up for me. A rabbit's foot may bring good luck to you, but it brought none to the rabbit. Thank you.
Thank you. And those are all of the oral comments that we have at this time. So I'll go ahead and start reading the written comments. If you can give me just a moment. The first is from Michael Barnes in San Gregorio, and it states, Michael Barnes, oh, sorry, my screen just jumped. Michael Barnes, POA member. This is an email between Jeff Gaffney and POA President Alexander Hapke on 8/9/22. Dear Alexander, it was great to talk with you today, and I hope that my recollections provide you context and intent to the legislation we discussed. I was the president of the Santa Clara County Park Rangers Association when we assisted in the passage of legislation that allowed all park rangers to negotiate for safety retirement benefits. We started in 1999 and worked with PERS representatives, the governor's office, as well as the legislative analyst's office. The intent of the legislation was to include all park rangers that were peace officers as defined in 830.31B of the Penal Code. All parties were in agreement with that intent when the governor signed Senate Bill 439, but the law at that time only included Santa Clara County Park Rangers and the County of Sacramento in a separate section of the code, since they are a 1937 Retirement Act county. During the next legislative session, pretty sure it was the very next session, Assembly Bill 1082 was passed, cleaning up any additional questions and adding all park rangers as defined by 830.31B PC to the government code and authorizing them to negotiate with their agency for safety retirement. I was also brought in on this legislation to assist with its development, and I can confirm the intentions. It should be noted that throughout the legislative process, it was emphasized that the justification for park rangers, and give me just a moment. The next comment is from Jessica Lucas, Ingram-Lucus. This is continuing with the Gaffney email. Needing to have safety retirement was the totality of all their public safety duties. The understanding of those duties centered on the park ranger role as a first responder to medical emergencies, fires, and law enforcement incidents. Safety retirement is about older employees retiring so they do not carry higher liability for the employer. This is especially important as it pertains to working long, late hours, possibly packaging up injured individuals onto backboards on remote trails, and then carrying them out sometimes for miles, and having to do public safety tasks that are physically demanding, like responding to fires and law enforcement incidents. Having physically fit employees of a generally younger age has proven to reduce employee injuries, as well as the potential for injuries to others. Safety retirement encourages employees to retire earlier in their career by capping their retirement at 90% of total compensation earlier in their career with a slightly more advantageous formula to compensate for the cap. In contrast, there is no cap for miscellaneous retirement members and no incentive to retire since they can continue to accrue benefits. The need for a younger workforce was considered paramount for employees working night shifts, high-stress jobs as first responders, and as mentioned, to get workers to retire at an earlier age so they did not become a liability to the agency. Jeff Gaffney, President of the Santa Clara County Park Rangers Association, 1997 to 2003. The next comment is from Eric Stanton in Los Gatos. It states, as a member of Midpen's Field Employees Association, I request that the board does not force terms of employment on the Rangers, but rather to return to labor negotiations and discuss a public safety benefits plan that will protect the Rangers staff. Please vote no. The next comment is from Francis Mendoza in Fremont. It states, dear esteemed board members and staff, my name is Francis Mendoza and I am the manager of community development for the Children in Nature Network. I am asking the district not to force work rules on park rangers, but rather to return to labor negotiations and discuss a public safety benefits plan that will protect the rangers as they protect the safety of the public. As a former naturalist and park ranger for the East Bay Regional Parks District, we are all susceptible to the imminent possibility that a fire could threaten not only our structures, but our livelihood and ultimately our lives. Under the terms of the current contract, they are not paid or afforded the same protections and pension plans as other officers, firefighters, and sheriff's deputies, despite fighting the same conflagrations such as the CZU complex fire. This is just a cost-saving technique being imposed on rangers by Midpen management. Do the right thing and afford the Midpen rangers the same protection and pay as others who are in the same position. Thank you for your time and consideration. The next comment is from Grant Kern in La Honda. It states, COVID exposed a lack of leadership from the top when we had little knowledge about the virus. Their response instantly eroded trust. Rangers worked through the pandemic while leadership said we are not essential. Land and facility staff were directed to clean restrooms every day without a definitive idea of how the virus was transmitted. Again, we were told we are not essential. During this time of uncertainty, when people tend to pull together to support one another, certain AGMs couldn't acknowledge potential risk to employees in the field. What did board members expect when they professed that you could go to work for another agency with safety retirement? During the pandemic, management decided to perform a salary survey on field staff that took place behind closed doors and with zero transparency or communication to those impacted. Based on management's actions, it would seem that they had no intention to negotiate in good faith. Groups were specifically isolated to reduce their voices of dissent. I have worked here for 25 years and I have never seen morale so low and turnover so high. Management's dig and policies, inability to self-reflect or acknowledge mistakes will be the demise of this agency. Field staff has no confidence in our leadership. Do your job and exchange your burritos for a respectful discussion of our grievances. Put aside your win-lose mentality and sit down with solutions. I stand in solidarity with the Rangers. Doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different outcome is insanity. The next comment is from Deanne Gruber in Pleasant Hill. It states, we are asking for the district to go back to negotiation and offer public safety retirement on behalf of the Rangers who risk their lives providing law enforcement, medical emergency response, and fire suppression on district lands. The next comment is from Erica Namba in San Carlos. It states, please vote no on agenda item 7. Midpen Rangers are quick to respond to concerns, eager to educate the public, and play an integral role in protecting our open spaces. They are the reason that Midpen parks are in a class above the rest. They deserve a fair shake. Please allow them to negotiate. Thanks, Erica Namba. The next comment is from Jessica Vizena in La Honda. It states, I believe Midpen Rangers should be provided safety retiring medical benefits. No, our Rangers are not peace officers at the time of hire, but they are once they attain their required PC 832 certificate and return from successfully completing their 16-week Ranger Academy, which is the same training that the National Park Service uses. Midpen Rangers are not being peace officers at the time of hire is a weak excuse for not providing them with adequate benefits for the daily risk they face to protect the land and the visitors. The cost to the district to provide appropriate benefits to our uniformed peace officers would increase the Ranger employee retention. There is a high Ranger turnover rate because the district does not seem to want to invest in their most important assets that keep the public open space land safe and operational, the field staff and the Rangers. As the Field Employees Association board member at large, I request that the board does not force terms of employment on the Rangers, but rather to return to labor negotiations and discuss a public safety benefits plan that will protect the Rangers staff. Please vote no. The next comment is from John Lloyd in San Jose. It states, I am a member of the Mid-Peninsula Rangers Peace Officers Association, and have been employed by the district for close to 20 years. I'm currently a supervising ranger working out of the South Area office. My concern with not having a competitive safety retirement plan is for the current PEPRA members and future hires. We are currently losing good employees that have required hundreds of hours of training in order to become competent solo rangers. We are also losing the ability to recruit new employees. In the last year, we lost 4 rangers, 3 in the last 2 months, with more contemplating if this is the right agency for them. Our recruitment has never been as bleak as I can remember, with only 28 applying for the ranger position and less than half of those even qualifying for a first round interview. I worry that we will not have the staff to allow for opening and managing future preserves. The ranger staff is already stretched thin when it comes to coverage when patrolling the 65,000 plus acres of open space that are spread out between the 3 counties. We need to be able to retain and hire good, competent people. Public safety is a vital part of the Rangers' duties, and safety retirement will protect the current employees while attracting future employees. Please vote no on the GM's recommendation and direct the district's negotiating team to return to the table to have an open conversation about safety retirement. Thank you. The next comment is from Jay Marvin in Campbell. It states, my name is Jay Marvin, and I am a member of the Mid-Peninsula Rangers Peace Officers Association. I love my role as a ranger. I enjoy educating our visitors as well as keeping them safe. To keep our visitors safe, we are trained and obligated to respond to unsafe situations that most people would run away from. I've been on numerous calls where the patient dies on scene and I attempt to console the friends and family. I've located bullet casings scattered along Mount Eminem Road after an attempted murder. My coworker was less than a mile away from the shooting as it happened. I removed brain matter and blood from the trails at Rancho San Antonio Open Space Preserve after one of our visitors was murdered by another visitor driving a vehicle on the trails. I am a law enforcement ranger and I put my life on the line. Every single day I put on my uniform and report for duty. My job is to protect you. I am asking the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District to please protect me and my fellow rangers. Please come back to the negotiations table. Thank you, Jay Marvin. The next comment is from Gail Work in La Honda. It states, the public is counting on Midpen's board to assure public safety within the many acres being managed and conserved. In that context, the Rangers provide frontline services to the public for fire, medical, and law enforcement when needed during emergencies. At a recent community safety meeting, I became aware of serious grievances most of the Rangers have due to a lack of sufficient disability protections if injured on the job. Also, I am told the age of retirement for Midpen is much higher than other equivalent regional frontline positions, making the benefits a deterrent to retention and recruitment and to Rangers' ability to function effectively. Given the current lack of benefit protections, the public can expect Rangers to hesitate to risk injury in the face of danger. This puts the public at risk and should be addressed by the board. This situation does not properly respect the Rangers' service to the public, the risks they are asked to take. I ask the board to return to negotiations with Rangers for public safety benefits. The next comment is from Hillary Jordan. It states, my name is Hillary, the wife of Midpen Ranger. I write you about current POA negotiations, or should I say the lack of negotiations that have been occurring over the past year. You spend hours in closed-door sessions hearing a one-sided argument from the Midpen management team about why Rangers should not get public safety retirement. How many of you have accepted the invitation to talk with the Ranger on this topic? None. Recently, you have all been offered ride-alongs and open discussions with the staff you are about to impact with your vote. Not one of you has taken the time to see what Rangers actually do. How in good conscience can you deny protections to the Rangers when you don't even know the risks they face? I can't help but wonder why you are so afraid of speaking with the Rangers about public safety retirement. What is the worst that can happen? You gain a better understanding about the job of a Ranger. You develop a more informed understanding about the issue at hand. Is that really so bad? It is clear that the board does not fully understand the role of a Midpen Ranger. So I ask you, please educate yourself before making decisions. I ask you to live up to your responsibility as a Midpen board member and respect your Rangers at least enough to listen. Management's understanding of the risks faced by Rangers is learned from behind a desk. Rangers live it. The next comment is from Haven Lund in La Honda. It states, I am a member of the Midpen Rangers Employee Association. I relocated across the country to work here because I wanted to work for an organization that values its employees. However, I no longer believe that Midpen's management or board recognizes the hazards of being a ranger. Rangers are first responders. We are the first person on scene to medical aid, fire, and law enforcement situations. I'm proud to be a first responder, but every day I work, I am physically at risk. Every single call for service has the possibility to escalate into something dangerous for me, because working with the public in the capacity that rangers do is unpredictable. Management claims that our policies keep us safe, but that is clearly the statement of someone who does not work with the public the way rangers do, since it does not recognize the uncertainty of contacting anyone as a public safety or law enforcement professional. Currently, in order to retire with full benefits, I am required to work until 62 years old. If I am gravely disabled on the job, I will get less than 5% of my salary in retirement. Neither of these is acceptable for first responders and rangers already qualified for safety retirement, which lowers the retirement age to be in line with other public safety professionals and grants us better disability benefits. Please vote no to imposing working conditions and urge your management staff to return to negotiations. The next comment is from Greg Smutnak in San Jose. It states, as a POA member, I am writing to express my strong dissatisfaction about the district imposing working conditions, removing binding arbitration, not providing safety retirement, and skipping a year of COLAs in this contract. I've been here for 17 years and keep hearing how the Ranger staff is appreciated and how proud the district is of our work that the Rangers do. Well, imposing a contract on us surely does not show that. With inflation on the rise and the cost of living ever increasing, how can you approve a contract that does not at a minimal provide the 3% COLA for the year we were without a contract? The district is fiscally sound and has the money to provide all that we are asking for. If you can spend $500,000 on the 50-year anniversary celebration, you can certainly bring our hourly rate to a livable wage and provide safety retirement. We are not just line items on a spreadsheet. We are people that have families or significant others that rely on us and our salary to provide for them. We rely on you to provide for us a safety net in case some catastrophic event happens and we can't come back to work. I'm tired of hearing that our policy protects us from serious harm or death. That would be like a car manufacturer stating, if you wear your seatbelt, you'll never die in an accident. Please vote no on approving the terms of employment. The next comment is from Christopher Furniss in Woodside. It states, Rangers provide an invaluable service to the community. On Highway 35 in San Mateo County, Rangers are routinely the first rescuer to a variety of incidents, from wildfires to power lines down to vehicle accidents with injury. Frequently, Rangers improve the outcomes of incidents by locating and relaying the information to the other responders. Additionally, they render life-saving medical treatment to persons suffering traumatic injuries who are bleeding to death, suffering from high-energy impacts suffered in vehicles traveling at freeway speeds. If the district wants to maintain its position that it is not their job to perform services to those in need, own it. When local media runs the headline, Midpen management directs Rangers not to help injured motorists unless it's on district property, own it. When taxpayers ask why the district requests San Mateo County Sheriff's deputies to respond to take auto burglary reports in Parissima Creek Northridge lot, when that's not a deputy's job, nor is it their tax base paying for it, own it. I've worked dozens of medical calls in my career, and prompt intervention is paramount to improving outcomes and preserving patient viability. To draw a line between who gets potentially life-saving treatment by responders, particularly when they're the closest, is ludicrous. It runs contrary to mutual aid agreements and afoul of principles of those tasked with helping their fellow persons. If the district wants to open this can of worms, buckle up. Respectfully submitted, Christopher Furniss, Woodside, California. The next comment is from Chris Perry in La Honda. It states, as president of Midpen's Field Employees Association, it is disheartening to see the management team and board forcing terms of employment on our fellow POA union. This has our own members worried with how we will be treated in the future with our own concerns. I encourage the board to reconsider and vote no on this agenda item. Go back to the negotiating table with the Rangers staff and have an open mind for their rightful concerns. The Rangers have not received a cost of living adjustment since July 2020, meaning the rest of Midpen staff have received 6% over 2 years. So why is it that even in this forced terms of employment, you're only offering 3% instead of 6% to catch them up to others in the same pay range? I argue that is still not enough. The last consumer price index for our area was 6.8%, while Midpen staff received 3%. Your staff are struggling, and we're essentially seeing our salaries shrinking while our comparators are offering better raises. Meanwhile, Midpen's property tax revenue is up 7% or 4.5 million this year alone, and up 16% or 10 million from fiscal year 2020. That increase in revenue should be more than enough to pay for safety retirement to properly protect our ranger staff, especially since it's not going towards staff salaries. When will the board do something about it and take care of their staff? How many more need to resign? Please vote no. The next comment is from Dan Chamberlin. It states, and Campbell, it states, as a member of Midpen's Field Employees Association, I am very concerned that a contract is potentially going to be imposed on an issue that is currently in negotiations. This is extremely concerning, and I beseech the board to vote no and return to the labor negotiations. My next comment is from Arthur Goldstein in Los Gatos. It states, hello, my name is Arthur and I live in Los Gatos. I am speaking to you today in favor of the Mid-Peninsula Rangers Peace Officers Association. Rangers perform a critical role at the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District, providing for the safety of the public. They deserve a fair contract instead of the imposition of work conditions that they did not agree to. Board members, I urge you to direct your staff to return to negotiations and offer a public safety benefit to protect Rangers as they continue the valuable and dynamic work that they do on a daily basis. Thank you for your time. The next comment is from Andrew Verbrugge in San Jose. It states, my name is Andrew Verbrugge and I am a member of the Mid-Peninsula Rangers Peace Officers Association. Recently, the association received a letter saying that by policy, the Rangers are at no more risk of being hurt on the job than any other district field employee because our policy says we should leave unsafe situations. Ask yourselves, how can you predict unsafe situations? This letter to the Rangers saying that we can simply avoid any hazardous situation by not engaging or leaving is far too easy to say than to do. Just 13 weeks ago, I stopped a subject for riding his bicycle with no helmet at a preserve. Did I just put myself in an unsafe situation? I do that law enforcement stop every week for the district, but this time the person I stopped charged at me when attempting to find out who he was. Up until that moment, there was no indication that I could have been in this hazardous situation. What happens the next time I stop someone for not having a helmet? Based on this experience, I believe I could be justified in saying that stopping any person for not wearing a bicycle helmet in the preserves is dangerous, and we should stop doing these contacts. But I know that's not reasonable. The reasonable approach is to continue to enforce the district's regulations. The reasonable decision that the board should make is to provide CalPERS public safety retirement benefits. The next comment is from Blake Whisenhunt in San Jose. It states, this seems a bit tone deaf. You are planning to impose a contract on your peace officers without negotiating in good faith. Your Rangers are dedicated stewards, peace officers, and wildland firefighters, and emergency medical responders. They are the first line of defense in your parks and open spaces, and they should be treated accordingly. Their demands are not unreasonable or realistic, as public safety retirement is given to Santa Clara County Park Rangers, similarly situated Rangers who overlap geographically in some parks and open spaces. I implore you to listen to your boots on the ground rather than dismissing their concerns from the comfort of your air-conditioned conference rooms. Former President, Park Peace Officers Association. Give me just a moment to open the next batch.
Jen, would you like to have a break?
Oh, I'm good.
All right, how many more do we have?
Probably about a dozen.
All right, very good.
I'm just opening now. Sorry, Adobe is being very slow. Okay, next comment is from Stephen Johnson in Los Altos. It states, my name is Stephen Johnson, a Mid-Peninsula Ranger Peace Officer Association member. Regarding safety benefits, a reoccurring response I have heard from management is that policy protects us from needing it and how other agencies inherit the dangers of district emergencies. Policies do not control unpredictable human and fire behavior. I responded to a homicide and provided victim care. I have extinguished fires before they became out of control. I have had visitors cry on my shoulder after having to administer CPR to their loved ones. This job takes on physically and mentally draining duties. I know this is what we signed up for, but sacrifices are still being made. We sacrifice physical health, mental health, and time away from our families on weekends and holidays to ensure preserves are safe for our visitors. We were titled first responders and essential workers through a pandemic. While other agencies have looked to compensate their essential employees during these stressful times, management has chosen the path of not negotiating or reasoning with their ranger staff. The district has refused to negotiate for many benefits over the years and is now finding itself falling behind in keeping ranger retention. The ranger position used to sell itself, but now I'm afraid this is not the case. We have been told time and time again that the ranger staff are essential to the district's mission. Now, here is your chance to show us that and vote no on imposing a contract. Let's negotiate. The next comment is from Sagar Pathak in San Jose. It states, Rangers have been working without a contract since July of 2021. Come back to the negotiating table and bargain with them on the public safety pension plan based on their firefighting and law enforcement duties. Thank you. The next comment is from Thomas Anaya in La Honda. It states, my name is Thomas Anaya, and I am a member of the Midpen Ranger POA. The district's stance on refusing safety retirement for its first responders is not consistent with other agencies according to their job descriptions. Surrounding agencies such as California State Parks, Santa Clara County Parks, National Park Service, and many others that have similar job duties to district rangers all provide a type of public safety retirement for their employees. Not providing a safety retirement plan will cause future health, recruitment, and retainment issues for its rangers. Rangers are not trying to grab for a higher level of responsibility or status by fighting for safety, but are rather advocating for protection when they get hurt on the job. Administering CPR during the first weeks of the COVID pandemic, having an individual attempt to get into the cab of a patrol vehicle and grab a hold of a ranger, conducting a search and rescue for someone that made suicidal statements at 3 a.m., and being first on the scene to a house fire while assisting someone running out of that building, yelling for help, are just some examples of what Rangers did to provide help within our community. If the district wants to retain its employees and be a destination for long-term employment, then the district will at least consider a discussion of safety retirement. The next comment is from Steve Gibbons in Redwood City. It states, I am a member of the Mid-Peninsula Rangers Peace Officer Association. I am asking the district not to impose work rules on the Rangers, but instead return to labor negotiations and discuss a public safety benefits plan that will protect the Rangers as they protect the safety of the public. Rangers face a significant level of risk in their responsibilities of law enforcement, firefighting, and emergency medical response. All three areas of responsibility are recognized as dangerous. Rangers should be afforded safety benefits because we do all three, and not just when it's convenient or when the perceived risk is low. Many injuries occur on what starts out as a routine law enforcement contact. Many injuries occur at the very beginning of a fire or in a small fire, or what's categorized as a quiet area of a fire. Emergency medical responders are hurt when walking or working in steep terrain, or when working on the side of the highway. When responding in the dark of night, they are hurt when carrying a patient on a backboard, and it can happen without warning. Rangers do all these actions in their line of work. No policy or practice can fully safeguard Rangers from these dangers. And what we are asking for is a benefit plan that better covers us if we are injured or killed. Next comment is from Ryan Jordan. It states, my name is Ryan Jordan. I am writing as a member of the Midpen Rangers Association. The district provides its Ranger staff with the same disability benefits as office/work from home staff. While you sit and attend this meeting at home, do you feel the face of the same level of risk? Do you feel you face the same level of risk as a ranger responding to a vehicle rampage in progress with one hiker already murdered? That incident has already occurred, but more recently, Rangers were put on alert in response to a new threat made by a member of the public. This threat included that the subject wanted to use their vehicle to ram people and then commit suicide by crashing into a wall. Sound familiar? Management claims they provide sufficient disability protections to their Rangers. This is false. If the person made good on their threats and caused injury to the Ranger on duty, that Ranger would have had 0% disability coverage under the current plan. The current plan requires a 5-year vesting period, which the Ranger has not met. 13 Rangers, about 50% total, are under 5 years and would not be protected by the current disability plan. The disability protections with safety retirement protect the employee from day one. For decades, management has been aware of the higher risks faced by Ranger staff. As Director Seaman said, it only took 8 years to get to the moon. What is taking the board so long to protect their rangers? We protect the public. Please help protect us. The next comment is from Peter Cook. It states, my name is Peter Cook, and I am a member of the Mid-Peninsula Rangers Peace Officers Association. I have been a ranger with the district for over 16 years and feel that the work required of us rangers places us in a position of increased risk. We are trained as peace officers, firefighters, and emergency medical responders. We are the first on scene for law enforcement incidents, fires, and medical aids in very remote areas. The district's enabling legislation refers to a suitable police force, as well as stating that the district is primarily responsible for the prevention and suppression of wildfires. District rangers provide these services for the district. If the district wants to attract and maintain a good ranger force to work on district lands, I would ask that the board of directors please authorize and negotiate safety retirement for ranger staff. Sincerely, Ranger Peter Cook. The next comment is from Natalie Nastigall in Williston. It states, as the former district ranger, I strongly believe the current proposal is inadequate to attract and retain quality rangers, and if approved, will continue to discourage longevity in these positions, resulting in large turnover and reduced workforce caliber. The summary of the ranger position outlined in the proposal does not fully encapsulate the risk, stress, and liability each ranger takes on every day, and clearly demonstrates that those proposing these terms have never worked in a field capacity themselves. I left the position of district ranger due to the cost of living in the area and the physical and mental strain that is required to perform ranger duties, as long-term stress on the body and ever-changing shifts will ultimately lead to an unsustainable work-life balance and the inability to be secure in a career as I age. Safety retirement and a living wage would have helped me feel more supported continuing in this role, as the proposed salary increase is still significantly below what is required to match current inflation and the cost of living in the area. Stating that the district ranger does not assume the responsibility of a sheriff or firefighter is incorrect. This position not only shares the same inherent risk of any badged, armed, uniformed law enforcement officer and firefighter, a district ranger also carries the risk of enacting their duties alone and in an isolated environment. I implore you to vote no and listen to the voices of those actually doing the work. The next comment is from Matt Gruber. It states, so the parks remain safe, can the district go back to negotiation and offer public safety retirement on behalf of the rangers who risk their lives providing law enforcement, medical emergency response, and fire suppression on district lands? The next comment is from Miguel Perez in Los Gatos. It states, good evening, my name is Miguel Perez. I'm a member of the Mid-Peninsula Rangers Peace Officer Association, MRPOA. I began my career with the district in 2006. When I began my career, there was a profound passion among the ranger staff. It was this passion that carried the district through the drastic challenges of the past several years. While most of the world was working remotely, district rangers kept the preserves open during the COVID-19 pandemic. We prevented the CZU fire from destroying a board member's home and causing unimaginable damage to our natural resources as well as private property. We enforced regulations, responded to calls for service, and made significant sacrifices for the betterment of the public and our preserves. Your rangers showed courage and resolve in the face of dangerous and unknown situations. We are not asking for additional policies, equipment, or authority. We are simply asking for a retirement benefit for which we are eligible. I implore you to vote no on the imposed work rules and direct management to restart negotiations with MRPOA. In addition, I also ask you to please engage in direct communication with MRPOA leadership. I am confident that through honest and thoughtful dialogue, we can come to a mutually beneficial agreement. However, if a decision is made to impose work rules on ranger staff, I am concerned that what little embers of passion are left among ranger staff would be tragically extinguished. Thank you, Miguel Perez. The next comment is from Macon Trumper in Gig Harbor, Washington. It states, as a former Mid-Peninsula Ranger, I am vehemently opposed to imposing work conditions on district rangers while refusing to enter into negotiations about public safety benefits and a cost of living adjustment comparable to non-field staff. Becoming a ranger was my dream and I loved the job, but the stress of being constantly vigilant and ready to respond to any emergency at a moment's notice takes its toll physically, mentally, and emotionally. Rangers attend a rigorous 17-week seasonal law enforcement training academy, the same level of training required by the National Park Service, and are required to attend regular trainings throughout their career to keep their skills sharp and prepare them for a demanding career as a public safety professional. While the members of the board refuse to negotiate, these women and men are patrolling preserves alone, often in remote areas with backup upwards of 30 minutes away. During my short time as a ranger, I was tasked with providing traffic control for car accidents, directing landing helicopters, contacting aggressive individuals, detaining intoxicated individuals in possession of controlled substances, participating in overnight search and rescue operations, providing support on active wildland fires, assessing and transporting injured visitors, responding code 3 to emergencies on and off road in varying conditions, and I could go on. This work carries inherent risk, and it is past time for these hardworking individuals who sacrifice their personal safety to protect these lands and the people who enjoy them to be compensated fairly and adequately. The next comment is from Tricia Marshall in La Honda. It states, as a district open space technician, I often rely on our ranger staff to assist me with ensuring the safety of our visitors, my coworkers, and myself. Whenever an emergency arises on our job site, I know the rangers are only a radio call away and will be prompt in their response. The collaboration between our departments, land and facilities, and visitor services is critical in the safety of my crewmates. In my 5 years of working at the district, ranger turnover rates and problems with understaffing have been very high, which concerns me and my safety greatly. Please do not impose a contract on the POA, and please start taking ranger turnover rates seriously. The safety of your maintenance staff depends on it. The safety of our visitors depends on it. Please do your part in ensuring that no more rangers resign. Thank you, Tricia Marshall, Field Employees Association. The next comment is from Warren Jenkins and Ben Lomond. It states, as a member of Midpen's Field Employees Association, I request that the board does not force terms of employment on the rangers. A much more proactive and empathetic decision would be to return to labor negotiations and discuss a public safety benefits plan that will support and protect the ranger staff. Also, in the interest of the future of Midpen, a safety retirement plan would greatly enhance recruitment and retention of the ranger classification. Please vote no. And the last comment I have currently is from Hannah Brown in Pleasant Hill. It states, I am very proud that my husband is a ranger who serves the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District and that he dedicates his life to the service and protection of Bay Area preserves and the people who visit these areas. Every day at work, my husband is at risk, every day of being killed or injured while serving his role, regardless of whether management believes that to be the case. The fact is that we live in a world where law enforcement professionals of any kind are not safe because they are called to enforce rules and laws which are not unanimously appreciated. Those who would wish law enforcement professionals harm do not stop to determine whether that person is a city police officer or a ranger before taking action. And it is foolish for the general manager to imply that my risk of losing my husband in the line of his profession is diminished because he is not a police officer, county sheriff, or firefighter, as written in the recommendation. The fact is that since working at MROSD, my husband has seen death, consoled grieving loved ones, prevented fatalities with medical assistance, fought fires, and has had to defend himself against those who would wish him harm. And still he loves the mission and values of the preserve and cares deeply for the community he serves. Please acknowledge the care and sacrifice of our rangers by continuing negotiations with them. And that is all of the comments that I currently have. Let me check my email. And Deputy District Clerk Maria, sorry, if you want to chime in if I missed any. Okay, hearing nothing, I think we are done.
No, you got them all. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, that was a fabulous tour de force, Jen. Thank you very much for reading all those comments. I'm wondering if any members of the staff have any comments or want to answer any questions or have any follow-up before we move to board deliberations. Oh, seeing none.
This is Ana Ruiz, General Manager, and Jack, if you need to correct me, please do so. But I know there seems to be confusion about going back to the bargaining table. And what I would say is in setting in place the 1-year terms, which is for this fiscal year that we're currently in, we are still needing to go back to the table this fiscal year. So that is irrespective of the proposal that's before you. We will still have to go back to the table.
That is correct.
Thank you. Okay, very good. Thank you. I have one question before we move on to deliberations. I'm wondering, the statement was made several times that safety retirement is about allowing people to retire earlier. so they don't become a liability. Does any member of the staff or Jack, do you have any comments on that?
I know we've discussed repeatedly with the Rangers and with the board the cost projections associated with safety retirement. I believe it was at our second bargaining session that we received the proposal from the Rangers for the safety retirement benefit, and we then fulfilled their request to seek a actuarial concerning that from CalPERS, which we then discussed in detail with the Rangers at our December 1, 2021 bargaining session. There's a whole menu of ingredients in the pension model, both in terms of when one can retire. That depends upon whether one's a classic or a peppermint member, and also the sort of value of that benefit. It all contributes to the timeline graph that Stefan included in the presentation that the board received at the beginning of this discussion this evening. I believe that exact same graph was actually shared with the Rangers during the bargaining process to show that there's a collection of factors, including age of retirement and value of pension payment during retirement, to contribute to increased cost. And Stefan, if you have more or greater detail that you want to throw in there, sir, please feel free.
Thank you, Jack.
Jack, I think you've covered it. That slide does show the cumulative costs, the various components that would be triggered by safety retirement.
All right, thank you. Director Siemens, I see your hand up. Do you have questions, or you want to start off our deliberations?
Well, I would like to see the general manager's recommendation. Is there a slide for that?
I can reshare my screen. This is the general manager's recommendation.
All right, thank you, Brian. Director Siemens, do you have questions?
Yeah, I have a question, because if we pass this and then we negotiate later on this fiscal period, can that term be reduced or pulled back? Let's say we have an agreement in January. Does it automatically have to go all the way to June, or can we later pull it back and negotiate a different end time?
Sir, the date provided for in the staff report is designed to try to comply with Myers-Brown Act. It talks about if there's an impasse, the last step in the impasse process is a board decision. As I mentioned in my comments, the board is really presented with two options when there's an impasse, which both parties have agreed there is in this circumstance. They can either do nothing and leave everything status quo, or they can impose their best offer, which in this case includes a variety of compensation enhancements. What the Myers-Brown Act talks about, sir, is that is for the final fiscal year during the bargaining process when the parties were not able to reach agreement. And so that June 30th, 2023 date is designed to reflect that which is provided for in the law. If the parties commence negotiations at some point during the fiscal year and reach agreement on some additional menu of compensation changes that may or may not include safety retirement, the dates associated with all of that is also negotiable between the parties. So if they wanted things to take effect before June 30th, 2023, absent interference from some kind of a third party that would have to administer something that might have its own bureaucratic timelines associated with things, the parties could agree to make things happen before June 30th, 2023. It's all negotiable.
Alrighty, thank you. That's what Okay, I just want to make a comment to try to maybe get this to a conclusion. First of all, we're not discussing safety retirement tonight. What we're deciding on is two very simple, to me, very simple issues. Do we go back to the negotiating table with no raise, which means we don't pass this thing? Or do we go back to the negotiating table along with the fact that we give the Rangers a raise? And I'm in favor of passing this resolution because I want to see those folks get a raise, and then we still go back to the bargaining table. And it seems to me it makes little difference as far as negotiations are concerned either way, but this way at least they get a raise. And I'm absolutely in favor of doing that. Thank you.
Okay, well said, Director Stevens. Director Hassett.
Yes, thank you. Actually, Pete pretty much answered my question, and I'm in kind of agreement with him, but I was confused about what Ana Ruiz said, that the difference between in either case, imposing or negotiating, you're always going back to negotiating no matter what, and so I don't understand why you wouldn't want to have certain guidelines imposed as long as they're positive, perks or whatever that you're probably going to end up with anyway. So the other way, you're really penalizing Rangers for holding for not participating in. I don't know, but what Pete said, I completely agree with. It makes more sense to me to impose the restrict or the guidelines and than not. So that's my thoughts. That's it.
All right, thank you, Director Hassett. Other thoughts, Director Ripple?
Yes, thank you. Brian, or whoever's controlling the slides, could you go to the one slide that has the benefits? Because I'm going to pick up on, I think, the thread that Pete and Larry are on. I really appreciate all of the comments that we heard tonight. I appreciate the efforts, and I appreciate all of our employees, Rangers included. But gosh, we have been negotiating for the past year, and we're where we are. So we made some progress, as this slide shows, and I think it's probably not the best use of our time just to go back and try for what we've been trying for the last year. So what I'm in favor of what Pete and I think Larry are saying is, let's provide the Rangers with these benefits, with these increases, starting right away, basically. Let's continue talking and negotiating because, I mean, the elephant in the room is safety. And I think we just have two very different views about that. And I think that this will give us some time while the Rangers are able to get some benefits here. Will give us the time to understand a little bit more about each other's viewpoints. I mean, I really appreciated a lot what I heard tonight, and it does make me think to understand where the Rangers are coming from, and I'm hoping that the Rangers are going to take some time to understand where the district is coming from, and with that, hopefully we can reach some kind of an agreement. So. I think we are negotiating. We'll continue to negotiate throughout this year, but I think this is a good basis for the start. So, unless Jack or Ana or Brian, I'm missing the answer that Jack provided to Pete. I'm in alignment with him, and we'll be voting for the general manager's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Ripple. Director Kishimoto.
Yeah, thank you.
I also want to say thank you to all the Rangers who have come out to speak to us and their wives and their families. In a way, I wish we had created an opportunity to hear all these voices, even 12 months ago, I guess, as we were starting all these negotiations. But so I guess for tonight, I think I'm agreeing that the action to take tonight is to go ahead and adopt these terms, so our employees can get the raise. And it does mean some month of not negotiating, but I'm sure they will start up soon enough. And I heard all the points made. I mean, I think that there are some nuances. So I think we've been kind of, trying to negotiate, there's kind of the black and the white, public safety or not public safety. And there are some nuances in between that I think, I hope we can look at some options. So my hope for this next round is that we are committed to, looking at some in-between options. Otherwise, we don't want to end up in the same impasse a year from now. And I also regret that, especially with COVID and such, that it is true we haven't been able to see each other in person, especially the newer members, the newer Rangers who have joined. I'm sorry we haven't been able to meet in person. But please know that we do all appreciate each person, and I know each person is special, and they do bring their passions to the job. I think all our employees do, and we really. And we're all. I think from the board members down. we all count ourselves very, very fortunate to work for the district, and there's trade-offs involved. But the other thing I was thinking is that the world of public employees and safety is shifting, and maybe that's another thing for us to keep in mind, because I know that cities are having a terrible time hiring policemen and firemen, even though they provide a much higher set of benefits. And we're fortunate to continue to get applications for openings. But, I know that the world out there is changing, and we all need to kind of take that into consideration. So I think it'll be a complicated job to negotiate something that's good for our taxpayers, our visitors, and all our constituents, and of course our employees as well. So, but I think we're all committed to doing our best. So I think with that spirit, I will also be supporting the recommendation. Thank you. All right, thank you, Director Kishimoto. On to Director Holman.
So I think it's pretty clear none of us want to be where we are tonight. It's not ideal. And it may be hard to hear that. And it may be hard to hear that each and every Midpen employee is important to the organization, and that we care about each of the employees. We wouldn't be the organization we are without our employees. And it may not feel like that in a situation such as this. And I appreciate that. I do think the comments that have been made previously by board members that, imposing, which again, nobody wants to be in a position of doing that, but we seem to have come to a situation where we're just not getting further at this moment or to this moment. So it seems to make sense to go ahead and impose such that, by doing so, the rangers will get benefits that aren't currently being enjoyed. So there is that, at least as an advancement. And I think what's critical to this, as others have said, what's critical to this and understanding this is that this isn't over. In this same fiscal year, people will be back at the table trying to come to a resolution and a meeting of the minds on how best to go forward. So it's difficult. It's a challenge. It's not a happy night. And yet I don't see another way to land at hopefully what is perhaps a better sweet spot. So that's where I am.
All right, thank you, Director Allman. I'm just going to take a turn here too. I know through the last year or so, several rangers have approached me, and I'm sure all the other board members asking for an opportunity to talk. And so tonight is really our opportunity to tell you what we're thinking. And I'm going to try to be really honest this evening and say that I'm so torn. On the one hand, I understand what the rangers, what you're talking about, the stresses of the job. I also know that it's got to be a great job to be working for the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District in these lovely preserves that are not, it's not like being a beat cop. It's not like being a firefighter that's working structures or wildland fire, then that's your job. That's all your job. Your job also for the district is as ambassadors, as stewards of the land, and as heroes and heroines to the kids who love the open spaces that you tend. So I also feel a great responsibility to think very carefully about the long-term costs of providing something like public safety retirement and how we as an organization stay financially sustainable and tend the taxpayers' dollars as prudently as we possibly can. So I'm also thoughtful about the terms of imposing work rules, when in fact, I think what we're doing is providing terms of employment that allow us to stay at the table. And that feels important to me because I think we're learning as we go here. And there's nothing punitive about these terms of employment as I see it. They keep the rangers at pace or moving along while we continue to talk and while we continue to understand our differences and how we might be able to come together. So that's where I'm at this evening. I too will be supporting the general manager's recommendation. And I see another hand up, and that is Director Steer.
Thank you. Reflecting on all of this, I understand the passion and the desire to speak to the district. We're all kind of within a legal framework that is not new, but is new to many of us as we go through this process. And I don't like the word imposition because that has a really negative connotation, but I do not think in this case it's negative. Following what Director Siemens was saying, the alternative would be to leave things as they are, and that would mean no movement at all in terms of salary, whereas this at least provides some additional to go forward and we'll be back at the table. And so I also am willing to support the general manager's recommendation, largely because it does at least provide some positive shift in terms of the salary of our ranger. So thank you.
Whoops, sorry, I was muted. Pardon me. Thank you, Director Sear. Director Siemens,
Could I make a motion?
please.
I would make a motion to approve the general manager's recommendation. And just as an additional comment, I would hope that we give the rangers, the peace officers or rangers, a copy of the cost sheets that Stefan showed tonight, because I think there's some confusion on their part about how much it's going to cost the district. And it isn't all that necessarily the enhanced retirement caused by safety retirement. It's all the additional insurance and disability and all the extra costs that pile up that triple that cost or quadruple that cost. So just as a point of information for future reference, I think we need to make sure they're aware of those costs.
I'll second that. All right, I have a motion from Director Siemens, second from Director Kishimoto. Director Kishimoto, did you have anything additionally you'd like to say in support of your second?
I think I've said it.
Okay, very good. Then we'll go to a roll call.
Director Sear,
Yes.
Director Hassett,
Yes.
Director Holman,
Yes.
Director Kishimoto,
Yes.
Director Riffle,
Yes.
Director Siemens,
Yes.
President Kirsten Tucker.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right, thank you. And again, thank you all for your time this evening to speak to us